Another movie I watched for Halloween recently this year was one that I have been wanting to see since I heard it was in development, Orphan 2 or Orphan First Kill. Now, this video is going to have spoilers. I am going to talk about some stuff. And if you haven't seen the first one but want to, I suggest that you probably see that one because before you do anything else, because I mean, the twist and the value of the twist in the first one, I think has a lot more kapow, when you're actually in the thick of it and just watching it for the first time and you don't know what's going to happen. Um, so I would recommend that first if you haven't done that. But if you're just going to keep watching, I will continue now. So I watched this movie and I was like, I was very interested in what they were going to do because the actress is returning to play Esther. And what we find out from the first movie is Esther, very interesting little girl, gets adopted. She was an orphan by this very loving, very, and relatively okay off family that they just want her to be loved, to have a nice home and all that stuff. And she seems like just a little bit of a troubled but gifted little girl. Seems pretty smart for her age and all that stuff. But she actually, over the course of the storyline, you figure out she's pretty unhinged and actually quite malevolent and violent and probably just plain evil. And then once you get to the end, you figure out that the twist is she's not a little girl at all. She is a 30-something-year-old woman who has a hormone problem. So she's basically a dwarf person, or just someone with a severe hormonal imbalance. She doesn't produce certain things, and so she has sort of the brain and the some of the physiology of a grown woman, but looks like a little girl. And so you know she uses that to be this weird little um little evil thing that will come into your house and mistreat your pets and your kids and the wife, but ultimately is trying to seduce the father. But I was really interested to see where they were going to take the story on the next level. So when I saw this, I was not expecting how they started the approach. They tell you straight off what's going on with her, and they show you what happened in the psych ward that she originally came from. And this is basically not necessarily an origin story, sort of an origin story, but just how did this begin? It shows she was actually very intelligent. She would use the disabilities of others and the violent tendencies of others to kind of get the things that she wanted in the facility that she was in. And it was actually very difficult to work with her because of how manipulative she was. Ultimately, she finds a way to escape, and she assumes the identity of a then missing little girl who belonged to a certain family. And she poses as that person who's been missing for a long time, for this very wealthy family in the United States. And the authorities take her home, and so this family is just overjoyed that their supposed little daughter has returned home, that she's been found and whatever. And so it was sort of the somewhere in Russia, I think, was where she was at the time, or one of those Eastern European countries, something along those lines. And so when they find her and she's introduced into this new home, she's not as sharp as she is when you see her in the first movie. She's not as composed and under control about her behavior. She has anger tendencies. She has just urges and habits of an adult, but she doesn't look like an adult. So she has a hard time keeping those under wraps. And you really see her trying to learn how to maintain the image of a little girl who's just sweet and innocent and up to nothing in particular, at least especially nothing bad. But she's a little shaky about it, and so immediately the mom of this family gets pretty suspicious and doesn't really understand. And there's a husband, a wife, and an older brother. and the older brother's pretty indifferent. He's kind of a jerk. He's kind of just doing his own thing. And this is actually a pretty wealthy family, and so he just flat out doesn't care. And so when you kind of go through it, the dad is just overjoyed. He's so happy to have his daughter back, even though she seems to have a completely new set of talents. It's been 4 or 5 years, so there really was no way to tell um, how or why the differences came. But Esther was very smart about this. She assumed the identity of someone she looked an awful lot like, and could easily, suppose that they were the same person. So they didn't really do any DNA checks. They kind of just the story fit the bill, and they just kind of ran with it. A little bit of an oversight, and so when we get into it, the dad, like I said, he's just very happy, very welcoming. He's bringing her very close, and this is exactly what Esther wants. She wants to get close to the dad. She wants to be intimate with a man because she's a woman and she has never had that. But she's also a murdering psychopath. And so when you are looking at the dynamics, it's just like, wow, where is this going? But there's a twist in it. So if you don't want me to reveal the twist, you should probably stop now because I'm about to reveal it. Okay, so this is something I did not see coming. Okay, I really didn't. And the mom, the mom actually, you find out, is suspicious from the start. She knows that this is wrong, and you don't really figure out why it's wrong until a little later. But ultimately, the older brother ended up being overly rough with the sister, and she accidentally was killed. And so her brother murdered her. And rather than, go through that problem, the mom and the son covered it up and hid the body and said she went missing. So the mom and the brother knew all along this couldn't be her because they killed her. They're murderers. And so the mom just outright confronts Esther and says, "Who the heck are you and what do you want? You're obviously here to scam us." And because everything has been going so well with her husband, because her husband is so happy, she doesn't want to screw this up. She tells Esther, "You know what we're going to do? We're just going to run with this scam, okay? But you have to do exactly what I say from now on, okay? Or I'm going straight to the authorities about this, and you'll never, ever get out again." And it's like, just like, I did not see that twist coming. But this movie is a bit more fast-paced. It's a bit more simplistic because there's not a whole lot of location. And different from the first one, it doesn't really focus a whole lot on the fact that there is a slow, composed psychological manipulation happening. It's not as subtle. It's just kind of straight up. And this movie is actually a lot more of a slasher horror than anything else, than a psychological thriller type of horror. Esther, she's got a really quick stabbing hand, and they don't hesitate to show the blood, and it's a rougher version of the character you might have known from the first movie, because she's still figuring out how to be this sweet little girl without really showing anyone, because that would be the key to her survival from that point on. And so it's an interesting way to tilt everything. But from the point that she knows she's figured out, it becomes kind of a cat and mouse game between the two of them about who can be smarter about the situation, who can accomplish what. And we know that the mom and son are now have a homicidal tendency, and that they're not afraid to use it if Esther gets out of line. And so Esther has to find a way to get around that. So she tries to manipulate the husband, and it just becomes this really chaotic, dramatic game. And like I said, it's fast paced. It's set and only it only happens for the course of a couple days, and it's creepy, and it's fierce. But due to the way that they had to film it, because the actress playing Esther is, she's I think she's an adult now. They did have to cut it up in a way that didn't really reveal it. I think they still did a great job making her seem like a little girl and stuff, but you can definitely tell that they had to shoot it differently because they couldn't show her whole body as much as they did in the first one. There's just sort of an innocence element to her that just isn't there anymore because you can just kind of see it in the eyes and in the face that it's just she looks a little older. She looks a little out of place, but that still works for this context because she hasn't fully achieved the look and the manner that she achieves in the first movie, which I actually really like that one. I'll probably do a video about that one later on, but I think I wanted to see this one. I wanted to see where they took it. I think it was a little simpler. I don't think it delivered quite as well as I wanted it to. But again, if you're looking for a horror movie, just more of a slasher type of thing, I don't. It's not really a jump scare one. Like I said, it's just you kind of get to know more about Esther. She's a very interesting villain type character, and the horror genre, I think she has her own little spot, and she's earned that, especially from the first one. So, I hope they find more content because I think this character is interesting and the way that she has an impact on people, and because the actress keeps aging, they couldn't do it without the actress. I don't remember her name, but she does a fantastic job. And, like I think it was a solid horror movie. I was satisfied. I think it underperformed for expectation, but I wasn't too picky about it. I think that overall it was a good one, so I would recommend it if you're looking for a horror or just a Halloween movie to watch. Orphan First Kill.